Got it. Excellent. Okay, so I'm still in a little bit of Zoom, trying to relearn Zoom 5 years later. Okay, so we are aiming for this evening to be about 45 to 50 minutes or so, but definitely before the 6 o'clock hour. So if any of you are planning on joining the 6 o'clock panel, you will have plenty of time to do a quick bathroom break and then head right back in. So without any further ado, I will turn it over to Susan from Boston College, and she will introduce herself and give you an intro on BC. Susan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. As I'm doing this, it is totally flashing back to pandemic times and a million high school visits that we did this way. I'm Susan McLarusi. I'm one of the associate directors in the admission office at Boston College. I have been at Boston College for 26 years, and I'm happy to just relay a few things about BC and then talk a little bit about our admission process and our testing policy as well. So Boston College is located in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, which is about 6 miles west of downtown Boston. Our name is totally and utterly incorrect because we are not in Boston. We are actually in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, and we are not a college. We are a university. We're actually a Research One university. And we have about 9,500 undergraduates and about 4,500 graduate students. Our undergraduates are spread across 4 undergraduate divisions, the largest being our Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. And then we have 3 pre-professional divisions, the Carroll School of Management, the Lynch School of Education and Human Development, and the Cannell School for Nursing. Also, people may or may not be aware of this. We started a 2-year college this past year called Messina College, which is located on our Brookline campus. It's actually the campus that formerly was Pine Manor College. We integrated with Pine Manor back in 2020 and started 2-year college Messina this past year for first-generation students with high financial need. So that is a new component to Boston College. Also new to BC is that somewhat new. We now have engineering as a major, which is located within our Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. Our engineering program is about to graduate its first senior class. So those are some new and exciting things about Boston College. Important to know that we are a Jesuit Catholic institution. We were founded by an order of Catholic priests known as the Jesuits back in 1863. Jesuits are known for education as part of their mission of ministry and have established a number of educational institutions throughout the world. We are very proud of being a Jesuit institution and how that impacts our students' educational experience. It means that we are very much focused on the liberal arts. So all of our students, no matter what major, no matter what undergraduate division, partake in liberal arts courses throughout all 4 years of their Boston College education. It also means that we are encouraging our students while they're being educated on our campus to use their education for more than just career, but also to be seeing their education as a way to affect change in the world and to help those who do not have access to education, who do not have the privileges that come with education. So that's a huge part of our experience at BC. To shift gears a little bit about kind of the admission process at Boston College, we use the Common Application. That's how people apply to Boston College. And we have 3 different rounds that students can apply. We have a regular decision round where the deadline is January 1st. And students will hear from us in the next couple of weeks. We're actually kind of like right in the thick of making regular decisions right now. We also have 2 early rounds that are both early decision. So the binding program, we don't have non-binding. We'd only have binding for early, and we have early decision 1. Deadline is November 1, and we let you know in December. And then we also have ED2, and that deadline is January, and we let you know in February. The way that we kind of run our admission process is that each of us in our office has a particular territory that we work with and review, which is why I am here. I work with Holliston. I am the person who reads all the applications for Holliston. I do make the decisions on them. Certainly another point in time could go into the details of that, but it is a very holistic, individualized review by the reader who handles particular territories with the world. And then the big question lately has always been about test optional and where we're at. BC up until 2020 required testing. Since then, we have been test optional and are remaining test optional. I think it's important to always know and ask questions about like where testing plays in the application review process. Prior to 2020 and still, testing was one piece of the application process for us. It was not the be all end all. It was not the most important piece, and that is still true. For students who are admitted to Boston College, about 70% of them do submit testing. So that's just a little bit about us and about our current admission and testing policies.
Thanks so much, Susan. And as I mentioned, if there are any questions, we are hoping to have a few minutes for questions at the end, so we'll hold off on those. All right, Kenny, you're up.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Kenny Sawada. I work for Syracuse Admissions. I'm just going to breeze through this presentation that I have. I'm regionally based in the Boston area, so I've been to Holliston quite a bit through my travels. Our school color, we'll start off with that, is orange. That's pretty obvious, right, on that slide. Beautiful campus. It is very compact. We have 15,000 students on our campus. We're in upstate New York, in a city called Syracuse. And super compact. My son is a freshman on campus, and his longest walk between classes is 7 minutes. So yeah, mid-sized school, but definitely a cozy feel. And it is urban. Syracuse, again, mid-sized city. We have 10 different schools and colleges. So with our review process, students are applying directly into one of these departments, and then our admissions team is split up by reviewers within these specific areas. And so the admission rate can differ from program to program. And students can certainly come in undecided too, so I do want to make that clear. Just some examples of where students have done internships and have gotten jobs. We'll assist students with that through our 30 career fairs throughout the year. We do rank nationally for study abroad. We're top 10 for that. And that includes 5 university centers, for example, in Madrid or in London. Lots happening on campus. Just to give you some examples, my son is playing club baseball currently. He had to try out for that, but his spring schedule is coming out pretty soon. What else is he doing? He applied to be a peer mentor. He's currently a social work major, so his hope is to help other students, underclassmen next year. He did, surprising to me, get a bid for a fraternity, so he's going to be initiated next month. So we'll see how that goes. Here's some shots of campus or in the area. So one of the things I'll highlight is snow. We do get quite a bit of it. Syracuse is one of the snowiest cities in the country. Bottom right photo you'll see is our athletic stadium. We have the largest domed stadium on a college campus. So we use that for D1 sports, as well as other events like convocation or concerts. Metallica is coming next month. I don't know if any of you know who Metallica is for the students. All of our freshmen and sophomores live on campus. There's 2 different types, majority double rooms, and 50% are open doubles. The other 50% are split doubles, which provides a little bit more privacy. And then the last slide here is the admissions process. We have early decision 1 and 2, no early action. So just the binding program as well as regular decision. For testing, similar to BC, we had required tests, pandemic happened. Now we are test optional. Just announced we're test optional for the next admission cycle. What else? There is one program that we do require test scores for, and that's our BS-MD Early Assurance Program. But that's the only one that would require it. Roughly about 40% of our applicants submitted testing. And we do conduct interviews with students. Those are done virtually. All right, and that's it. And I will conclude there. Thanks. Very spirited campus, tons of majors. Go Qs.
Thanks, Kenny. Appreciate it. All right. Nana from the University of South Carolina is up next.
Okay, hopefully you guys can see that. Well, my name is Nana. I'm the University of South Carolina rep. This is my second cycle within this role. I'm also a USC graduate myself. I graduated in 2023. Seems far away now, but I'm still growing on me that I graduated from that campus. And I'll go over this slideshow really quickly, but I'm also the New England rep, so I work with Holliston closely. We kind of read apps by territory, but I do not read all of them. We have an entire team that reads our apps. So if you have any questions on them, I probably don't have all the answers for the app reading, but I'll go over this very quickly. We are located in South Carolina, in the heart of Columbia, South Carolina. We're about 20 minutes away from the airport. We are the state flagship institution. We have right over 28,000 undergraduates, and we do cover all 50 states and plus countries. And each year, we do welcome around 7,200 plus students in our freshman class. We're a mid to large style campus. Pretty half and half in-state and out-of-state student. Given that we're a state flagship, we still try to maintain that balance of our in-state and out-of-state student body. These are our top 10 states. We are pretty large. We're pretty popular in the Northeast area. That's why I'm based out here in New England with lots of students from New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. We have over 60 ranked programs, with our top 5 being within those. So nursing, business, sports management, things like that. We're pretty large for psychology and biology as well. While we're a large school, we do shoot for that 18-to-1 student to faculty ratio, and over 87% of our classes do tend to have 50 students or fewer. So you can get that small class size if you're looking for it. These are all our different colleges and schools. We do have a honors program as well that we are top ranked for. That is a separate application process. It's our hidden secret almost because it's pretty small, around 500 to 600 kids that start out their freshman year. And it has all the perks that you could imagine an honors college would have, from more money to fellowship opportunities to smaller class sizes, early registration, things like that. Capstone is also really cool. It's only a 2-year program in comparison to the 4 for the Honors College. Capstone does not have an application process. The initial application that you submit to us, we will review you based on that. And this is for students who are looking for an enrichment experience. So they might want to study abroad, or they want to do service within the Columbia community or on campus, or make some of those early connections. That's what Capstone is. Fun fact, they have a really cool building with a restaurant on top that spins. I know, it's crazy. I've never been up there because I have motion sickness, but you can definitely check that out when you go. It turns garnet red whenever we win something, like we just did. Our women's basketball team was #1 in the SEC, so we did celebrate that. And beyond the classroom things, I'll touch it very, very quickly. Very well known for student life. We are ranked #1 for our first year experience. We love to jump into the fountain in front of the library whenever we're celebrating something. We have the rah-rah if you're looking for it. We have that school spirit that a lot of people chase. About 1/3 of our student population is in Greek life, so if you want that, we have that as well. Study abroad, super popular, over 2,000 plus experiences for study abroad, starting as early as spring semester. We're also R1 institution for research. Alrighty, and there's just some factoids if you want to take a look. I'll mention testing here real quick. We were test optional for our seniors, but for the juniors, the board votes on it each year, so we don't have an answer yet of whether we'll be test optional or not. As soon as we know that, we'll let you guys know, and that'll be before that August 1st date for when the application opens. We're also a 5.0 school. So what that means is we recalculate your GPA. Most schools up here in Massachusetts are on a 4.0 scale. So we will recalculate your GPA. And then last but not least, I'll go over deadlines real quickly. We're pretty early for Southern schools. So we start out right on the October 15th, that being our first deadline. All of our decisions are non-binding. So you do have until May 1st to apply to USC if you would like to. And we've released all our decisions at this point, with scholarships coming out very, very soon. But yeah, that's a little bit about USC. Thank you.
Thanks, Nana. All right. And last but not least, Phil Baird from UMass-Amherst.
Yeah, thank you. Can everyone see my screen okay? Okay, cool. All right, so Welcome to UMass. So my name is Phil Baird, first year admissions counselor for the University of Massachusetts-Amherst. I'm a proud alumnus. I graduated there in 2023, and then I've been working as a counselor ever since. I am the representative for Holliston. I don't necessarily read every application from Holliston. We read on a major by major scale. So I read primarily for psychology, but then I'll kind of bounce around and help out, where needed. But okay, we don't need that. So just some general things about UMass. It's a large school, about 23,000 students. There's about 7,000 graduate students on campus. We are out in Western Massachusetts, so it's a rural area. The town of Amherst is a pretty small place. I feel like this picture up on the top left does a good justice, right? Like it's a rural place out there, but then UMass really does feel like a little city just because there are so many students. We have about 16,000 students that live on campus in 56 of our residence halls spread across 8 different residential areas. We got people from all over the country, all over the world. We are missing people from South Dakota, North Dakota. No one from North Dakota comes to UMass. I'm not really sure why, but everyone else across the world comes to us. So again, just a little bit more about the community. It's a really diverse place out here on campus, and I feel like that's what a lot of people look for in a college. I'm from Massachusetts. I live in Central Mass, the town that Mount Wachusett is in. So if anyone's familiar with the area, I grew up with people that looked like me, that were the same as me, same family as me. Something that I was looking for in college was just meeting different people, being surrounded by other people that weren't, a clone of myself every single day. Definitely found that out in UMass. And it's a really supportive community. Tons of resources that we have on campus. I won't go through every single one of these, obviously, but really just know that any type of support that you will need during your time, we are there to help, right? I don't just say that as a counselor who's like selling the school. I say that as a student, as an alumni who took advantage of a lot of these different resources and, reached out for help when I was struggling. And I know, from firsthand that the folks in these offices like really do care about our students, Very quickly, feel free to take a picture of this, I guess, if you want. But like, all the other schools, we're on the Common App. So that's going to open up in August. It's going to be here before you know it somehow, some way. It's coming up on us. And then we do offer early action and regular decision deadlines. You choose one or the other. We don't defer students from early action to regular decision, right? So you have one choice, which one you want to apply for. And then I can talk about those a bit later on as well, but talk about that later as well. We are test optional, right? So totally up to you. This past year, less than about like 25% of our students sent in test scores. Since we are test optional, the average is obviously much higher than it would be if we required it for everyone. So the average this year for the SAT was about like a 1480. Obviously, every major is going to be different. Same thing with the GPA, right? Like the average GPA was middle 50% was a 3.9 to a 4.2 on a weighted 4.0 scale. After we recalculated it all, right, there's plenty of people below it, plenty of people above that middle 50%. But just to kind of give you a general idea, I guess. Like every other school in America, we read holistically, right? So that means like everything else, in your application matters. It's not just a GPA. It's not just, one part of your application. It really is the entire picture. And then these are the 10 different schools and colleges that we have. These house our I believe it's now 94 majors, and I want to say 67 minors. The exploratory tracks that we offer, this is our version of undecided. So you can't actually come to UMass as undecided. We are aware that a lot of students are undecided. It is okay to be undecided. You probably shouldn't know exactly what you want to do at this point in your life, where you guys are juniors in high school. You have plenty of time to figure it out, but you just can't come to UMass as completely undecided. But you'll choose an exploratory track within one of these schools and colleges. Right, so you like natural sciences, you like math, you like physics, you like your science courses in high school, but you don't know which subject you want to major in. You don't know that yet to make that decision. You could choose the exploratory track within that college to kind of get an idea of the different types of majors that are offered within that college. These are the competitive programs that we offer at UMass. They're competitive just because there's more people that apply to them, which I am going to talk about a little later on. But again, there's only so much space. So more applicants, same amount of space. It's tougher to get into. The requirements are a little more intense, than other majors on campus. Estimated cost of this past year, and nothing there, nothing there. Okay, cool. So yeah, so that's UMass. It's a great school. It's a big campus. Again, it's one of the largest up in the Northeast. We actually probably are the largest in the Northeast. So you can definitely do whatever you want to do here. And then as a nice little caveat, we do have the #1 dining in the country for 8 straight years. We have been ranked #1 by the Princeton Review. So food's good. You'll always be eating well. And parents and families, you guys always eat for free when you come visit your students. So that's a big plus to send your kids to UMass. So yeah, thanks.
Great. Thanks, Phil. All right. So thank you all so much. I know it's a lot to get through your entire school presentation in just 4 or 5 minutes. So thanks for doing that and doing so thoroughly. So for our guests this evening, we did ask each of our presenters to prepare an answer to a question that we've already given them. And as I mentioned, in about hopefully 15-ish minutes or so, we'll be able to open it up for some questions. So starting with Susan from Boston College. Susan, can you talk a little bit more about finding the right fit for students, and how do you know if a college is a good match?
Sure. I think I've been doing this work for 30 years, and I've been at BC for 26. And I just said in an information session today, when I was applying to college in the 80s, like, it was fun to apply to college. I desperately wanted to get out of the little town that I grew up in Connecticut, and I'd get all these fun brochures in the mail from schools I'd never heard of, and I knew I could get out of my little town. What has changed, I think, in looking at colleges these days is less focused on not only the fun, but on yourself and what you're looking for in an institution, and so much more worrying about, how am I going to get in? How can I present myself in a way that I will get into schools? And I would really encourage you to flip the script on yourself and to start thinking so much more about what you're hoping to gain from your 4-year experience at an institution, and not whether or not you can get in. So how do you do that? I mean, I think one of the first ways to do it, obviously, is do some reflection on yourself. And this is super Jesuit of me to kind of say that that's the first thing that you should do, but it really is. That you should spend some time thinking about what matters to you, what you're looking for, not just what the end result is going to be. Not, I really want a good job. Education is going to do that for you no matter where you go. So it really needs to be more than that, and thoroughly thinking about what kind of environment am I going to thrive in, and where can I add my gifts and talents that they will be appreciated and valued. So I think there's step 1 is some personal reflection. And then step 2 is start looking at schools beyond just the numbers. And I don't just mean admission numbers, but beyond just how big they are or where they're located. But what is the real kind of mission and purpose and personality behind the institution? And you can certainly do that virtually through online resources, but one of the best ways to do it, obviously, is to go and visit schools and to feel what it's like to be at a particular institution and what they're all about student wise. And I think spending a lot of time on campuses is incredibly worthwhile for students, so that they can get a sense of what matters to the institution. One of the ways that I kind of describe this for Boston College is I tell students, we're not the type of place where our students just do their major all day long. Our students are incredibly cross-disciplinary. They love learning in terms of majors and minors in really varied ways, things that don't technically make a lot of sense to pair together. I'll have students who are economics and art history. Like, that seems rather odd. But that's our students do tend to feel that way, and that's part of their purpose. And our students are very service-oriented and volunteer-oriented through direct service. They're the types of students who will go into the city of Boston or go into different parts of the United States and work one-on-one with marginalized families and children and things of that nature. So to understand the ethos, to understand what each institution is in terms of philosophy, in terms of personality, I do think doing some initial research online is so important, but going and feeling and spending time at schools is as equally important. Obviously, information sessions and tours are great ways to do it, but there's also many opportunities to go to campuses and spend time in classrooms and that kind of thing. Encourage you to kind of figure out as you start to narrow your list, which ones you want to spend some time on so that you can see if they're a good fit for you or not. And then I would say, you know, one of the other aspects of my job is that I work in transfer as well. I work with first-year students and transfer students. And one of the things that I often hear from students who are transferring is that they didn't know exactly what they were looking for. And then when they got to that particular campus, maybe it didn't kind of hit the buttons that they were hoping for. So again, that going back to reflecting and how big of an institution do you really want to be at? Location wise, where is it that is going to kind of meet your needs? And then thinking through kind of what social life will be like. Do you want Greek life? Is that going to be something that is part of your experience? So all of these pieces, not just the academic, but also the personal, the social, figuring out on your end, and then doing some real good hands-on work is important.
Great. Thanks so much, Susan. She brought up a really good point about doing some college visits. So for all of our students in the audience tonight, if you are not aware, Holliston High School will give you 3 total excused absences for college visits. And hopefully my colleagues can attest to the fact that most colleges will provide students with a letter that confirms that that student was on campus that day. And if you just bring that to the main office, we can excuse your absence. The excusal doesn't mean that you're excused from work, though. So you will have to make up any work that you do miss while you're out. But it is a great way to get off on campus and see all these great schools right in our backyard. All right. So moving on, Nana is up next from the University of South Carolina. If you can talk a little bit about the supports available to students on campus with respect to academics, emotional support, and health support.
Course. So, well, for USC specifically, we do, like I said, have a lot of students coming from a lot of different places. So they are used to many different things. One of the ways that we help out with like mental health and things like that is we offer 10 free sessions for our students that are included in their tuition that they're already paying. So if you do ever join us at USC, please do take advantage of that. And we're big schools, so class sizes will also be sizable, especially your freshman year. So we do offer a lot of help within our Student Success Center, and they don't only help you with your classes, but they also help you with writing your resume, doing mock interviews, managing your money if this is your first time, being away from home in this capacity. Anything like that will help you figure that out. One of the best resources that not just USC has, but a lot of other universities have as well, are transition programs. So we have University 101 that all freshmen will end up taking, and that just helps you figure out the high school to college switch. For us specifically, it's a mentor, but also a peer leader who's a current junior or senior, and they're your big brother or sister on campus, and they'll even take you to their homes, have meals together, take you to games, to show you the reins of how to go to a football game for your first time. Anything that you may need, they are going to be your guide. It's a pass-fail course, but gives you all the insight you will need to be on campus for the very first time. And then another thing that I always tell students to look at is what, if they have any health concerns, to make sure that those universities have what they're looking for. So we do publish like whatever we have to offer for celiac or gluten-free or whatever you're looking for on our website. So you have, the resources that you may need. But any school that you're going to, look at their resources. The professors are great aides, but do they have SIs who are supplemental instructors? So will you have another set of eyes if you need it? Then you have us, our last first line workers who help you not only through this process, but once you're at the university, getting you grounded, making sure you're doing okay. I've had some calls today with kids who got admitted and want to figure out what's next. So yeah, but those are just some of our resources, but I know a lot of my colleagues here, and then others also have the similar resources.
Yes, thank you so much. Great. Moving along, Kenny, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about what students should be doing right now, and keeping in mind that most of our students in the audience are juniors, so really thinking heavily about the college application process. And if you could also touch upon how students should approach the college essay or the personal statement, and any short answers or supplements.
Yeah. In terms of things to do right now, there's lots that you can do right now, but I'll just focus on two things. Susan alluded to this as well, but just in terms of the visit, getting a sense of what schools are like. You can do so much research online and looking at your publications and brochures, but physically seeing a space is going to be important. Like if, for example, if you haven't seen like BC Northeastern BU, you may assume that they're similar, but they're completely different campuses. So just even driving through, if you have a weekend available that's coming up, that might be nice to be able to just see, even if they're not schools on your list, just to kind of see what type of school suits you, fits you, connects with you. Another thing I think that you can work on right now is getting organized. So if you're more of a procrastinator, or if you're disorganized, now be organized because there's going to be a lot thrown at you. So the better you can be. So I'll give just some examples. So one is the amount of brochures and publications that you will receive from different places you didn't even sign up for. And you'll have stacks potentially all around the house. So having just an organized place for them will be important. Information that you get, being able to store it like in an Excel spreadsheet, for example. Deadlines, even just between the four of us admissions reps, deadlines from each of our schools could be totally different just within the four schools here. So having that all in one place on an Excel spreadsheet can be super helpful. And then the Common App or Coalition, although the application itself may not open till later in the summer, you can still start by logging in and creating an account. So that's something that you could do just to get familiar with that, with those applications. In terms of the essay, one thing I'll share is just in terms of the topic. I think there can be a lot of angst around what to write about. My daughter, who's a freshman in high school, came up to me and said, she's in an a cappella group and they're upperclassmen, so I think she was hearing what they were saying, but she was like, I don't have anything profound to write about for my college. Like, relax. You're going to be okay. And I'll tell you this, some of the most memorable essays that I have read over the course of the last 15, 20 years, the ones that stand out are just everyday things that occur. Like, this is a while ago, but a student once wrote about the decision they had to make between getting either an iPhone or a pet gecko, because their parent was like, you can only get one or the other. And so the student chose the pet gecko, which was very surprising to me. But that's one that just stands out and has, for the last, again, like period of time. Or a student who he was working part-time at a Japanese restaurant and then had to fill in for the sushi chef because they were sick and he had no idea what he was doing. So it's just those things are like sometimes can be more memorable. I think there's this assumption that you have to have cured cancer or talk about your presidency of 10 different organizations. And that's not what we're necessarily looking for with that. And then one last thing with the supplementals, you may find that some colleges will require a side mini essay, like ours is Why Syracuse. So just advice there is to make that as, I guess, different as possible, because it's so easy to just kind of write the same thing for each school, but we can kind of see through that. Just a side note, Danny Higgins was a student at Holliston High. He won Homecoming King at Holliston, and then he went to Syracuse and won Homecoming King there. So that would be kind of neat if you kind of wrote about that connection that you have with, with Danny, and that you maybe know him, or maybe you just heard the story from me, as opposed to maybe someone who writes that, oh, I want to go to your school because if you have a lot of majors and you're D1 for sports, like that can be very generic. So adding a little bit of extra into the supplemental will be helpful.
That's perfect. And some of you, I don't think Danny was teaching when most of our students were freshmen, but he was teaching at Holliston High School. I think he taught during like the 2021 school year. So might be a little bit before you, but yeah, Danny's a great connection to Syracuse. Thanks, Ken. And last, again, but certainly not least, Phil, if you could talk a little bit more about what applicants can and can't control throughout this process. There's this whole feeling that it's so overwhelming. What can they do to feel a sense of control?
Yeah, so there is a lot you can control. I'm also very aware how overwhelming the process is. I went through this process 6 years ago, so it is still like very fresh in my memory about all the struggles that goes on during a college admission process. But some things that you can control is that this is your application. You know, whatever you want us, any of us, any school that you apply to know. It's up to you to put it into your application. There are a lot of parts of the Common App, right? Again, we're not going to go through the entire thing right now, but you know, the extracurricular activities section, it gives you, I think it's like 50 words maybe to explain what you do in that specific club, right? If you're a part of some club, don't just say, you know, president of the club. What do you do if you're president of the club? What are your, you know, roles? What are your responsibilities? What do you do outside of the club to be prepared for, you know, meetings and things like that, right? If you have a job, a part-time job, you know, outside of school, talk about your responsibilities, talk about how you got that job, right? There's a lot of optional parts of the Common App as well, right? You know, just a space for you to talk about anything else that you want to talk about. Don't leave that blank, right? The more information that you can give to us, the easier it's going to be for us to make a decision on you. I think one thing to keep in mind, and this is kind of something that you can't control, is you know, we just received 53,000 applications this past year, right? I know we're all big schools, you know, all 4 of our schools are, you know, large universities. So we're all probably, you know, receiving close to 50,000 or more. That's a lot of other very qualified students that are, you know, fighting for that same spot that you want to be in next year, right? So you can't control who else is applying. You can't control what these other students are doing in high school. But again, what you can control, and especially now, if you guys are, you know, juniors, you still have what, 3 months left of junior year and then all of senior year, right? Like, go get more involved in junior year. If you're only part of like 1 or 2 clubs, you know, or you know, play just one sport, right? Maybe go join another club. Don't do that just because you think that college admissions wants to see that you're a part of 20 different clubs. No one can be a part of 20 different clubs. You don't have enough time to actually like dedicate time to those clubs, right? But we do want to see that you're involved in your school, that you're involved in your community. So that's some things to start doing like right now, because again, a lot of you are going to be applying around November or even October to some of our schools. Doesn't give you a lot of time to start like doing new things senior year to have it, you know, really mean something to your application. So just something to keep in mind as well. Another thing that you can control is what classes that you take during your senior year. UMass, and I know some of these other schools as well, have certain majors that have high school class requirements, right? Like if you're interested in business, we need to see pre-calculus on your transcript. If you don't have pre-calculus, you are not getting into the business program at UMass, right? That's just plain and simple. So if you're applying, if you're thinking of business, make sure that you have the specific required classes. If you're interested in engineering, make sure you have those classes, right? So that's something that, again, that you can control. And then what major you're applying to, sorry, I had to write down. What major you're applying to has a huge impact, right? Like I said earlier, we have some competitive programs that is business, nursing, computer science, engineering, psychology, architecture, and this year, molecular biology and biochemistry, right? So those ones are very, very tough to get into, very competitive, just because of the sheer number of students that, again, are applying in. I always joke about this. So I have a geography degree from UMass. Geography is not the most popular major in college right now. It's not the most like lucrative degree in the year of 2025. I absolutely loved what I learned and what I did in school, but applying and getting into geography is a whole lot easier than applying and getting into nursing, right? obviously that depends on what you want to do in your future. Don't apply as a geography major if you want to go into into the medical field. But just keep that in mind. All of our majors have very, very different acceptance rates and what we look for in students. So again, just some things that you can control. And then lastly, I just want to reiterate what Susan said about and Kenny and Nana actually as well. Is that you can, sorry, mysterious ghost printing right now. Is that you can control how much you visit a school, how much you research a school, how many times you email the school and like ask your questions and really get to know about those specific programs. So again, just all things to keep in mind as you guys go through junior year and then obviously the summer, and then you'll be applying to colleges. It's going to be like 2 weeks from now is what it'll feel like. So.
Yeah, definitely agree. This is all really great advice. So thank you all so much for that piece. And to wrap up this kind of this part of the questions, if each of you can just give us a quick little takeaway from each of your schools that you want families to know. So what are your words of wisdom, a takeaway from each of your institutions? So we will start back up again with Susan.
Words of wisdom specifically about Boston College or about the admission?
Just one takeaway about the process as it relates to your school, whatever you share with students. Yeah.
Mine would be that there's a lot of airtime about 30 schools in this country. So there's a lot of airtime about highly, highly, highly selective admission. And so I think that ramps up the stress that students have. The majority of the schools in this country admit the majority of their applicants. So broaden your horizons is what I would say.
Great advice. Kenny.
I would say there's different paths to get to where you want to go in your future. You don't necessarily, you may find yourself studying business and then end up over in our esports department by the end of your senior year. So just know that there's multiple ways to get to ultimately where you want to go in the future.
Perfect. Thank you. Nana?
I would echo what they said, especially with USC getting slightly more competitive over the years with business and nursing specifically. I tell my Boston babies all the time, you're going to end up where you're meant to be. If it is not now, it'll happen in the future. This is not the end of the road for anybody. So I just want to echo that to all the students here today.
Yes, and if you are on my caseload, you have probably heard me say that as well. You will end up where you are supposed to be, whatever that path may look like. And Phil?
Yeah, I would just say, again, like all these other schools, UMass is a big school. Big schools can offer a lot of opportunity. They can offer a lot of, people to meet versus smaller schools. They work for some people and that's awesome, right? If you're a small school person, go for it. But just know that at a larger school, like our 4 schools, you will have like endless opportunities and things to get involved in. And if you don't like one thing, give up, move on to something else, and you'll have a lot of other opportunities. So, yeah, big school is the way to go, in my opinion.
Excellent. Thank you all. So it is 5:45 right on the dot. How about that for timing, right? But with that, I did say we would have a few minutes for questions. So if there are any questions from our audience members, if they'd like to share it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask your question, we have time for a few questions if anybody wants to share.
A quick question, can the counselors or the college associates address campus tours and when they are available and how to go about?
Sure. Anybody want to take that?
Sure. I mean, they're on everybody's website. Most places are open through the week and sometimes on the weekends. Saturdays, BC's open in the fall on Saturdays when we don't have home football games. So you can find it right on everybody's websites.
Perfect. Yes, would agree with that. And also summer is a good time. I know when I worked as a tour guide as a student and we saw a ton of visitors over the summertime. Any other questions?
I will just jump in real quick about that for the
Sure.
tours. We all, I mean, I think most schools offer summer tours as well. I would suggest try to get onto campus while students are actually on campus. Campus is a lot different in the summer when no one is here, right? Our school goes from like 23,000 to like 2,000 on campus, right? So it just feels a lot different. It's not the same vibe. Obviously, it's difficult to get out to different colleges midweek or on the weekends, with, just everything going on. But try to get out in the spring if possible.
Great, thank you. We just had 2 questions come through, one related to campus tours, so I'll go to that one first. And Phil, you kind of answered that, when is a good time to start touring schools, but I think she was also referring to what time in a student's timeline is a good time to start touring schools. So if you could touch on that, or anyone, if you want to touch on that.
Yeah, I would say tomorrow is a good time to start. If you haven't started touring colleges yet and you're a junior, I would say like as soon as possible is probably the best time to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything there, or generally agree?
I really think whenever I'm a little different in that I wouldn't stress about this. Try not to. It's not worth it. Like, go when you're ready to go, because then you're going to get the most out of it.
Yeah, I hear that, and I can see both sides of this, and I see both sides of the spectrum with all of my students. So I think both really good pieces of advice. We had a question about alumni networks, and so in terms of, can you speak to your alumni network? Are there networking opportunities? What types of networks do you have?
I can take this real quick. So we actually just started a new thing with our alumni who are actually students. We're connecting current or incoming or new students with our alumni to get you that connection way before you even come to USC. That's one thing that we're doing. But also our alumni network is around 300,000 plus strong. So you can get in touch with anyone through our alumni network while you're on campus, whatever your want is. Especially when you start looking at careers and internships, we'll connect you with them. You can find them on LinkedIn. With a lot of big schools, you'll find big energy. So alumni love to get in touch with you, talk about the school. You can see the excitement. I've seen that when I've come to high schools. There's a principal that went to USC, or there's a grandfather who used to play football for USC. So it's like you can find these people, and they're the best resources to give you insight onto what their life was like on campus. So I would just, touch all your bases.
Great. And we had a bunch of questions just come through. So if I want to try to get to as many as possible, so we could do really, really quick. I think we have 3 more questions. So if we could talk about interviews. I know, Ken, you had mentioned that you guys do offer interviews. I know most colleges don't, just due to the number of applicants that they have, but for colleges that do.
Yeah, if students are like interested in doing it, I would encourage it, but like my son had no interest whatsoever in doing an interview. So if that's something that students aren't comfortable with, I wouldn't do it in that case. We do look at demonstrated interest, so showing that in some capacity, if not an interview, a virtual session, obviously going to campus, just showing it in some capacity would be helpful. But yeah, I don't feel like you need to do an interview, but if it's there and you're very interested in that school and are comfortable with it, then I would say go for it.
Great, thank you. A question about how students can stand out to colleges through the application process. I know, Phil, you kind of touched on that with your answer, but if there's anything in particular that any of you think students can do, I know my advice is no, just be yourself and you will shine at some point. But if there's anything you want to add to that.
Standing out is not how you get in.
Exactly.
Everybody thinks that. It's not at all. It's whether or not you're a good fit academically and otherwise to the institution. So the only way to know that is to be yourself.
Great, I would agree. And I know this is something that we're going to find at most schools, but career placement opportunities, experiential learning opportunities. I think all of you kind of touched on that. I know, Ken, you had a whole slide about some of the employers that students have worked with, but if there's anything that really stands out to you that you'd want to share with your students, with the students.
We have an event happening. Actually, it's this week. It's called Boston Immersion, our Boston Immersion program. And so we have students in the city currently, a group of about 20 students connecting with our alumni. And so it ends tomorrow. But that's just one example where we are connecting our students with our alumni network.
Cool. Great. All right, and I do have a few questions that just came in, but I do want to respect our representatives' time and also give our guests time to get to the next presentation. If you did submit a question and we were unable to get to it tonight, please reach out to your student's counselor. I am looking at the questions. I think we are all well equipped to answer those. And as an FYI to our audience members tonight. I used to work in college admissions as well, so I come with that background. It's a little bit dated at this point, but I can certainly provide that perspective too. Well, with that, I thank everyone, our guests and our presenters this evening for joining us. It was wonderful, so much valuable information. I know how busy you guys are. This is from, like I said, someone who used to work in college admissions. March is nuts. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate it. And I hope you all, everyone in our community, I hope you have a great evening. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.